What's up, y'all? Alvin here, and this is Question and Answer, episode 11. See what I did there? I tell the good jokes. All right, so first and foremost, I want to thank everybody for all the birthday wishes. Yesterday was my birthday. It was awesome. I actually got to get out in the morning and go fishing. I caught a nice fish. Then I came home and did all the regular birthday celebration stuff. If you were wondering, my favorite cake is carrot cake, which my wife made from scratch, and it was awesome. So yes, I'm a very lucky guy, had a very awesome birthday, and I want to thank all of y'all for making it even better. Okay, so I didn't try real hard to get this question and answer thing going yesterday because, it was my birthday. But I got some questions, and I got some leftover questions from last week. So I thought we'd kind of take care of some of that because there were some pretty good ones. Anyway, let's jump right into it. First question is from Yaya Killian, and the question is, do you tell the good jokes? And I think we all know the answer to that is yes, I do tell the good jokes. Now, if you ask my kids, the answer to that is most of the time, no. Occasionally, I'll tell a good dad joke and they'll actually laugh. But most of my fishing partners would say, yes, I'm pretty funny. So anyway, thanks for the question. All right, so next question's a little bit more technical, and this is from Workman Outfitters. The question is, we cannot find anything on dredging techniques on YouTube. What techniques do you use and find successful? Can you also explain exactly what dredging is? So dredging is basically fishing on the bottom, dragging a fly on the bottom. So whether that's freshwater in a lake or a river or saltwater, basically you're fishing on the bottom for whatever reason. Sometimes a year the fish will move to the bottom. Some fish live on the bottom year round, and it helps to be able to get the fly down to where those fish are. The most common way that we do here in Central Texas and even on the Texas coast is with some type of sinking or sink tip line and a weighted fly. So basically you just want to get that fly down as deep as you can and keep it there. Now that is one of the disadvantages of fishing with fly tackle. It is hard sometimes to get a fly down really deep, but there actually is an advantage. Because if you can get your fly line down with a sinking or sink tip line, if you can get that fly line down, the line will stay deep a lot longer than, say, a weighted lure on monofilament. Because with the monofilament, you're just depending on the weight of the lure, and anytime you reel, you're actually pulling that lure up from the bottom. Whereas with the weighted fly line, the fly line is going to stay down and tend to drag your fly along the bottom for much longer. So that's the basic dredging technique. I am thinking about doing a dredging specific video, so just keep your eyes out for that. But in the meantime, I hope that helps, and thanks for the question. Okay, here's another kind of technique question, and that is from B. Prokaski. The question is, what is your methodology or strategy for changing the length or speed of your strips for bass or redfish? If they are turning away, do you give it 2 denials before changing, or what? Typically, the speed of the retrieve is going to be determined by the water temperature. If the water temperature is prime for whatever fish you're after, I typically go for a much faster retrieve. If the water's too warm or the water's too cold, more than likely we're going to be slowing the retrieve down. Probably going with a longer retrieve as opposed to short, quick strips when the fish are a little bit more aggressive. These longer, slower retrieves kind of keep that fly moving longer. give those fish a little bit more time to pick up on the movement, maybe get excited about it, like, oh, that thing's moving, it's not moving too fast, maybe I can grab it. I'm not that hungry, but it's food. So that's kind of how I think about it. And as far as the when to decide to change it up, until we determine a regular pattern. So if we're sight casting, we get a refusal, maybe the very next cast, try a faster retrieve or a slower retrieve. And typically you'll figure out pretty soon like what's working best for that day. And then we just kind of stick with it, lest things change. Because it's fishing, something's always going to change, right? Anyway, thanks for the question. That's a good one. We could talk about that all day. Okay, so Stu Schultz wants to know, have you ever fished from a canoe? And if so, any tips you would pass along? I actually fished out of a canoe a lot. When we first started guiding in Central Texas and even fishing on the Texas coast, the canoe was the craft of choice. One of the main things about the canoe is really the selection of the canoe before you start fishing in it. You want something that's fairly wide and stable. It's not going to be a fast canoe, so you don't want a racing canoe. You want something you can put 2 people in and a cooler and potentially stand up in. So a nice wide canoe, something stable, and it helps if you are fishing solo to have a cooler to balance out the canoe. A canoe is a great way to reach a lot of water that you couldn't otherwise reach. I know a lot of people prefer kayaks, but I have to say that in my experience, I actually had more fun with the canoe. Like I said, you can put more gear in the canoe, you can fish 2 people in the canoe, and really the best is probably fishing 2 people in a canoe and then trading off. So one person rows while the other person fishes, then that way you can just focus on your fishing. Anyway, I hope that helps. Thanks for the question. Okay, so Nick Dad wants to know, what are some of the things you think about when you're buying your first boat? And one thing to think about is this is probably not going to be your last boat unless you just get super lucky. All boats are a trade-off, so I would think about what type of fishing are you going to do the most and get that boat for that type of fishing. If you think about getting a boat that's going to work okay for this type of fishing and okay for that type of fishing, then you're going to end up with a boat that's not going to be good for any type of fishing. So you have to make a sacrifice more than likely to get something that's going to work for the type of fishing that you're planning on doing most often, and that's what I would look at. Thanks for the question. John Duluth wants to know, what do you think of rock bass? I think rock bass are awesome. We only have them in a few rivers here in Texas. We caught quite a few when we went up to Michigan last summer, and they're fun. You know, they don't fight real hard, but they hit hard, and they're really good looking fish. And any fish that's eager to eat my fly, I like. Thanks for the question. JP Royalist wants to know, how do you float the Devil's River? Do you have to pay a company to run the shuttles, or can you do it yourself? You can certainly do it yourself if you have 2 vehicles and you got plenty of time, although it may be easier just to pony up the cash and pay for the shuttle, because the shuttle's going to take a couple of hours minimum. So think about that when you're doing your planning. The Devil's is an awesome river, but it is definitely demanding as far as the trip itself and all the planning that goes into making the trip happen. So if you can afford it, it's probably worth going with the guide. But if you can't, or if you are capable of putting together a pretty serious expedition, you can definitely do it on your own. Good luck out there, and thanks for the question. Okay, so Texas Country Fly Fisher wants to know, when switching from winter to spring, what signs of the season do you look for? Dates, rosebuds blooming, mesquite sprouting, moon phase, or water temperature? What makes you say to that first client, today we are throwing top water? Now, there's all kinds of things to think about when the seasons change and everybody's got their go-to. I've heard most of them, and there's always an exception. The thing I usually go with is just the fact that they're eating topwaters now. I'm fortunate. I get to put in a lot of time on the water. We've got multiple guides that are out on the water. We go fishing on our days off, and we just kind of keep an eye on things. When it starts feeling like, oh, maybe we should throw some topwater, we'll throw some topwaters, on our days off until the topwaters start working. And then the next time we're out with a client and we know they're working, or there's a pretty good chance they're working, we'll put one on. So usually just go with experience. Like I said, it's really fortunate, and it's a good thing to be able to spend lots of time on the water, and that really makes a difference when it comes to making these decisions, these game day calls when you're out with your clients. Thanks for the question. All right, so High Five Angler said happy birthday. Thanks for that. The question is, what's next on my bucket list for fishing, and who do you want to take with you? Well, who I'm going to take is super easy. That's my wife. My kids maybe, but definitely my wife. Right now on the bucket list, their bucket list trip is probably going to be back down to Mexico, back down to Puerto Vallarta. I made a video about my first trip down there. I'll throw a link for that up there. I had an awesome time. I want to get back down there, fish with the Snook Mafia guys again, hopefully get up the river, catch some snook, and maybe catch a bigger rooster fish. Who knows? Maybe Lene will catch a rooster fish. Anyway, thanks for the question, and that is what's on my bucket list. All right, so once again, time's about up, but we got one more question, and this was from Maverick One. This is a great question. I get these questions, and normally I try not to think about them too much. I try to read the question and then just answer it. But I saw this one a while ago, and I thought about it. But then I realized my initial answer was the right answer. So the question is, what's the absolute most important thing to becoming a successful fishing guide? Now, I immediately thought self-awareness. Consciousness of what you're capable of and what you're not capable of, so that you can get out and really kind of hone in and double down on your strengths and work on your weaknesses. So I think that's like anything in life, realizing where you are, getting a realistic assessment of your skills, what you're good at, and what you need to work on. And that's definitely important for being a successful fishing guide. Not just as far as catching fish or making your clients happy, but just, as a business, to be successful, to be happy, and to be able to continue down the path. Self-awareness. That was an awesome question. I hope that answer helps somebody out there. Once again, I want to thank you for following along on this journey with me, asking these questions, watching these videos. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you like what I'm doing, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't. It really does help me out. I'm having a good time right now. I hope you are. I'll see you in the next one. And in the meantime, good luck on the water.